And good afternoon. Welcome to the Fox 5 Live Zone. I'm your host, Guy Lambert. Thank you so much for joining us. We start the show with breaking news on Capitol Hill. Democratic senators and advocates are now discussing health care reform amid the government shutdown. Let's take a live look in.
In medicine, we take an oath. First, do no harm. Right now, inaction is causing harm. And the children I have dedicated my life to protecting will bear the consequences. Every day I go to work, I see the absolute best of what our healthcare system can do. I see brilliant doctors and nurses performing miracles. I see children who survive against impossible odds. But I also see the worst consequences of policy choices that force families to choose between medical care for their children and other necessities. I am here to warn you, Congress's inaction is about to unleash an avalanche of suffering on our nation's children. As both a doctor and a mother, I am proud to stand with Senator Warren and these Democratic leaders who are fighting for health care for our nation's families, and most importantly, the future of our nation, our children. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Irabunda. I am a OBGYN, and I come to you as a person who provides reproductive health care in a working class community in the Bronx to ask, why are we trying to worsen our healthcare crisis? Unfortunately for my patients, they already face so many challenges to survive. There is a food pantry I pass on my way to work, which I have watched the lines get longer and longer for over the past few years, but over the past few weeks, it's been worse. I already have to try to work on creative ways for my pregnant patients to get insulin, visit a nutritionist, get glucometers, and other medical supplies when they are newly diagnosed with gestational diabetes, because there are gaps in coverage by existing health insurance available, and they were unable to get their prior diabetes or pre-diabetic conditions managed before pregnancy. I already have to provide some of my pregnant patients their first meals of the day in my hospital at 3 p.m. when these folks get brought in by ambulance because they passed out on their way to work. On behalf of my patients who rely on Medicaid to receive their care, I ask that we make sure to keep access to affordable health care for them. These are the folks who keep my city, New York City, alive and well. And it's already really, really hard for them to afford health care and food and housing and transportation. A lot of times my patients can't come to their prenatal appointments because they can't afford the $2.90 to take the bus or the train. Let's not make it harder for them. These folks are my neighbors, they're my friends, they're our friends, and they're valued members of our communities. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nikki Sapiro-Vincure. I'm an OBGYN physician assistant, reproductive health content creator, mom of 3, and founder of an organization that helps to improve health literacy within our ever-changing healthcare environment. And these days I wear a lot of hats. All of us are forced to wear so many hats. And when I was preparing these remarks, I thought to myself, what hat do I wear in this moment? Do I want to speak as a clinician, someone who spends their day-to-day talking to other people and listening to the harsh realities of what it looks like? Do I want to speak as a mom after 3 unpaid maternity leaves and struggling to afford childcare with a master's degree? Do I want to speak as a content creator, trying to reach the people who are tired of politics and struggling to figure out how they continue to afford their life when we got into this because of the price of eggs? Or do I speak as a nonprofit founder, trying to rebuild health literacy and helping people survive in this healthcare system that is falling apart? Or do I speak on behalf of all of our clinicians who, let me remind you, have been so burnt out since the COVID crisis 5 years ago, and we still haven't crawled out of the deep depression that most of us clinicians sit in? And the truth is, I can't pick one. I don't have the privilege to wear a single hat at any given time. Because right now in America, Every single thing is connected. To want healthcare is to want food, is to want community, is to be a mother, is to be a politician. It's all the exact same. And the truth is, the people who are wearing the most hats are the ones who are holding our country together. Meanwhile, Republicans who wear a single hat can't even come to the table to do their one job. Healthcare is not a bargaining chip. It's not a luxury. It's the foundation of all of our lives. And it's time for every lawmaker to start acting like it. Caring about people shouldn't be radical. It should be part of their job.
We're in the middle of a healthcare emergency, and it is an honor to be here today with clinicians who are on the front lines in dealing with this crisis. It is an honor and it is a responsibility. We are here trying to protect access to healthcare for 15 million Americans. We are here to try to keep our healthcare system at least a little bit affordable for millions more people. And where is Donald Trump and the Republicans? They would rather shut down the government than have to address this healthcare crisis and try to make healthcare more affordable for Americans. Look, I'm not going to defend our current healthcare system. I'm not going to defend a system that makes it so challenging for so many people to get the healthcare that they need. But this is what I know for damn sure. Donald Trump and the Republicans are not going to make that system any better. They want to withdraw millions of people from having access to healthcare. And that is not only going to hurt those people and their families directly, it's going to hurt everyone. Because the consequence of this is to shut down community health centers, is to shut down rural hospitals, is to shut down labor and delivery rooms as a way to try to save money in our hospitals. It's to start to bring the entire healthcare system down. And sure, if you're a billionaire, shoot, you can buy your own hospital. You can get as many people to treat you as needed. You can take care of yourself and your little family. But for everybody else in America, we depend on an interrelated healthcare system. And telling 15 million people that they're going to lose access to their health insurance and their health care coverage, and millions more are going to have to make the decision whether to have health insurance or whether to pay the rent, is going to cause our overall health system to get worse for everyone who is not a billionaire. So Democrats are here because we are fighting back. We show up at the hard fights and we fight for the American people. That's what this shutdown has been about. That's what today is all about. Because Democrats believe that health care should not be reserved just for rich people. Democrats believe that nobody should go bankrupt over a bad medical diagnosis. And Democrats believe that it is our solemn obligation to save access to health care for all people in this country. So I just want to say one more time, thank you to all of you for the work you do every single day. And thank you for coming here today to tell more people about it and get more people into this fight. And thank you to my colleagues who stay strong in this fight. Democrats are showing up, and we are here to fight for the American people who just want access to get the care they need. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you all.
And there you have it. Senator Warren, flanked by a number of other Democratic senators and advocates, discussing all things with regard to health care. Obviously top of mind as the government shutdown continues now in day 29. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Armin Kurdian, U.S. Navy captain, retired and political strategist, back here on the Live Zone. Armin, truly appreciate you being patient. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Guy, absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
All right, so Democrats crying foul, outraged, if you will. In this case, it all surrounds health care and stating that the government shutdown, well, quite honestly, not doing anything to help just that. Do you have a response to what the senator had to say?
Absolutely, Guy. There should be a lot of outrage. That was probably one of the most intellectually dishonest, maliciously and deliberately false press conferences I have ever seen. They're talking about the healthcare system crumbling down and everything and not defending it. They are the ones who voted for it when they rammed the Affordable Care Act down our throats. The reason they're trying to get these subsidies, $1.5 trillion, is because the ACA did not bring costs down. Costs went up. Insurance companies left the exchange. So all these things that they're crying foul about, they need to point that finger right back at themselves. And if they would just vote to open the government, the president and Republicans have already said that they are willing to negotiate and discuss these subsidies and figure out what's best. Obviously, we can't keep spending hundreds of billions of dollars on health care for people who are not in this country legally. So the Republicans have done their job. They voted to open the government. They voted to say, okay, let's talk about this and let's go forward. But what the Democrats are saying is so incredibly false. It's scarcely imaginable.
Yeah, Armin, I want to go ahead and pull up a full screen. We are awaiting Democratic leader Chuck Schumer to address all things with regard to SNAP funding. That's due to happen in about 5 minutes or so. And so when that happens, obviously, we'll take you there live. Staying in the realm of the government shutdown, 25 states now suing the Trump administration over the suspension of food assistance benefits because of the government shutdown. Now, the lawsuit filed yesterday against the Department of Agriculture comes as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is set to run out. Armin, yet again, is this more reason for the shutdown to come to an end?
There's 1,000 reasons for this shutdown to come to an end. It never should have started in the first place. The SNAP program, everything is running out of money. I work in defense, and folks are running out of money in Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever you want to call it. So this is costing taxpayers dollars, and I've said it before. Folks have got to understand that this failure to open the government, every day you're taking taxpayer dollars, your hard-earned dollars that are going to Washington, D.C., and lighting a match to it, not just being misspent or misallocated. It is just gone because of this shutdown. It is incurring this cost and is making your taxpayer dollars just vanish into a black hole with nothing to show for it. So if this continues to happen, you're going to see more of your hard-earned money just vanish into thin air. Once that CR is finally passed and we can finally get back to the business of running the government and have these negotiations and do this, then everybody's going to win.
We'll end with this, and that is we know that Vice President J.D. Vance now indicating that troops will be paid during the shutdown, at least for now. Vance told reporters after a Senate Republican policy lunch that over 1 million military service members will get paid at the end of this week. Mr. Kurtigan, you are a man that served and served very honorably. Obviously, this was got to put a smile on your face.
Certainly for those folks who are overseas in the Persian Gulf or in hostile regions of the world, or even here back home, your E1s or E3s, your young sailors and Marines and soldiers and airmen who are who perhaps married and are starting a family, who are living just above the poverty level, who are literally living paycheck to paycheck. If you're single and you're out to sea, this shutdown doesn't really affect you so much because pretty much everything is right there on the ship for you or wherever you happen to be stationed. If you're at home here and trying to raise a family living in your own domicile, this is very, very serious. So I can't overemphasize overestimate. I'm sorry how big of a problem this is for these families.
Yeah, it's a big problem for not only them, but for the thousands of others who yet again have been furloughed and or awaiting another paycheck. We've been speaking with U.S. Navy Captain retired and political strategist Armin Kurtigan, yet again kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Joey, let's do this. Let's go ahead and pull up the full screen, if you will, of what we're about to witness with regard to Democratic leader Chuck Schumer. I want folks to get a look at this. We see some activity, and so he is due to speak at about 2 minutes or so. Typically, they run a tad bit late, but should that happen, we'll take you there live right here on the Live Zone. Meanwhile, after President Donald Trump met with the South Korean leader, the two countries reached an agreement on a trade deal. Next up on Trump's agenda is a meeting with the Chinese leader to discuss a potential trade deal with the global economic impact. This is obviously having a positive effect on the stock market across the globe. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Richard Lyons, author of The DNA of Democracy, Volume 1. Sir, we truly appreciate you being patient and welcome to the show.
No, thanks very much. I appreciate being here.
We'll discuss the book in just a second, and obviously you saw me just tease, we're awaiting yet again Mr. Schumer to speak, so I hate to rush you, but I want to make sure we get to you within the time frame. A lot of folks are saying this is a sense of deja vu, excited by the proclamations of a truce and apprehensive, if you will, that the real deal may offer far less to celebrate. Your take on that, sir?
Well, I think Donald Trump's trip has already been a great success because he's gone literally around China to all of its neighbors and created trade deals and pacts which allow American goods into their countries and then has a tariff on those countries in America of between 12 and 15%. Also, he's getting all the rare earth or critical minerals agreements with Japan and all these other countries. And in addition, an act of genius. In South Korea, he came to a pact with the South Korean government that they will spend $350 billion in America on shipyards. Now, where are we at a critical juncture between ourselves and China? It's that China produces ships for its Navy at a meteoric rate. So what has Trump done? He's gone to China's neighbor and secured $350 billion to help our Navy. It's an act of genius. And this whole trip has been a study in how to play chess.
And so with that, let's focus on your book yet again, The DNA of Democracy, Volume 1. We see it behind you. The main push away, if you will, and what do I mean by that? When one pushes away from the book, what is it that you want them to remember and reflect on?
It's a series of books, and this first one, The DNA of Democracy, is the how and why our country was created from all the instances of democracies and republics that went before us, and how it crystallized in our Constitutional Convention. And it also goes to the Civil War and the immense sacrifice of over 1 million people, casualties, that righted our Constitution to include the promise of the Declaration of Independence that all men in America and women are created equal.
Mr. Lyons, whenever I have a author join us on the show, I always ask the favorite chapter. And so with that, I pose that question to you, sir. Your favorite chapter and why?
It's called A New Order for the Ages, and it's about the Constitutional Convention and how 55 representatives of 13 new states came together to form the greatest social compact that's ever been written, and that's our Constitution.
Well said. Yet again, we have been speaking with Mr. Richard Lyons, author of The DNA of Democracy, Volume 1. Sir, I truly appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us right here on the Live Zone.
Thank you, Guy.
You bet. Well, after 2 bargaining sessions, airline contractors at Reagan National and Dulles Airport are refusing to raise wages by even a penny for 32BJ's wheelchair agents, cabin and terminal cleaners, tarmac workers, baggage handlers, passage services, and cargo operations. Most of the 32BJ's 4,000 airport workers earn the minimum wage, a mere half of the hourly wage a single person needs to live in Loudoun County. Joining us to discuss this is 32BJ Executive Vice President Jaime Contreras back here on the Live Zone. Sir, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so for folks that are really trying to wrap their heads around all of this, do tell, how did we get here?
Well, so several years ago, EMWA, in coordination with us and other elected officials, was able to raise the minimum wage for airport workers from, at that time, $7.25 an hour, $7 an hour to now $16.78. And basically, airline contractors are now saying, you know, we are not going to get reimbursed by the airlines for more than the EMWA mandated minimum increase, which is CPI, which is about 35 cents per hour, which is really, unacceptable for these workers who, frankly, make $16.78 per hour. A lot of these workers work 2 and sometimes even 3 jobs and still have a hard time making ends meet. And this is just not the way we should treat workers who, frankly, were there for us during the pandemic. And now, these contractors are saying, unless the airlines give us more money, we have nothing to give.
And it's interesting you touched on that. We know that back in 2023, Virginia airport employees provided some services for 50 million passengers, a number set to increase to a record high last year. So yet again, this is definitely an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that in sharp contrast, United Airlines has boasted a total operating revenue of $57 billion. American Airlines a record-breaking, full year revenue of $54.2 billion. And yes, in 2024, DCA broke its all-time passenger traffic record, and Dallas set a new international traffic record. So there's no reason workers who, frankly, make the airports work for both the traveling public, but also these airlines and these contractors should be making such low wages and have no employer provided health care. And given what's happening with the federal government and Medicaid and Medicare being at risk of going away for these workers, they risk of having no health care at all. And this is just unacceptable at the nation's capital airports.
Sir, we have time for one more question, and that is, it's real simple. What happens now?
Well, what happens now is workers going to continue to do what needs to be done, activities, public activities, making sure the public knows what these airline contractors are saying. We're going to continue to negotiate with the airline contractors and putting pressure both on their clients, but also MWA, airlines and contractors to make sure that these workers are compensated and respected for the work that they do.
Well said, sir. Yet again, we will continue to follow all of this as it continues to develop throughout the next several days and several weeks. We truly appreciate your time and you being patient and joining us right here on the Live Zone.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, after a violent weekend during which D.C. saw several shootings and carjackings, the city's top prosecutor heard directly from one community. I'm referring to U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. She held a public meeting at MPD's 5th District office last night, just hours after another shooting happened just a few miles down the road where 2 teenagers were shot. The meeting spearheaded by former ANC Kathy Henderson. She joins us now right here on the Live Zone. Ms. Henderson, we truly appreciate you hopping on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you say the goal is to make sure that we return to a level of folks being civil, and that's exactly what we saw last night, was it not?
Absolutely. I'm so proud of the neighbors for coming out. They followed Robert's Rules of Order. We engaged effectively, constructively with our U.S. Attorney Pirro. She listened, she took notes, she was absolutely positively engaged, and it was a benefit, I think, to the community and to the U.S. Attorney's Office because she got to hear our newest U.S. Attorney, Judge Pirro. She was able to hear directly from the citizens regarding our frustrations around this surging crime rate and an obvious lack of civility. I mean, we've just really sunk into a new low in the district with all of these acts of violence, and that has to change. Yeah. So I'm really that she joined us. I am the coordinator for 5D Court Watch. I created Court Watch in 2008 so that citizens could have a voice in sentencing when defendants were either adjudicated guilty or found guilty by the court or pled guilty. So it was really just a pleasure to hear from her. She's energized. She's already working to bring the crime rate down. She's making changes in her office that impact the citizens. And wow, I am just really, I think she's a rock star.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Ms. Henderson, and I'd like to credit you for extending the olive branch, if you will. It's no secret, obviously, she's a part of the Trump administration. I would argue a number of residents within that area are probably not too happy with that administration. But yet again, you are trying to bring people together.
Oh, absolutely. I think what we saw last night is a clear example of bipartisan grace. And you don't have to have the same political views, whatever your views are. Safety affects everyone. I'm so happy that President Trump cares enough about his constituents in the District of Columbia, regardless of political affiliation, to want to help us. And we accept that help. We appreciate it. And we love that his administration is energized to make a difference.
It's no secret that during that meeting, she being Pirro, doubled down on her focus on juvenile crime. I'm curious your stance on that.
I support it. My neighbors support it. You heard overwhelming support last night from the meeting. Juveniles have been driving crime since before former chief Kathy Lanier was our police chief. That has to stop. In the Omnibus Public Safety Act, which was over 10 years ago, there was a provision in that bill to hold parents accountable, but it was so controversial that the council removed it. Why are we not holding parents accountable for their children? Children need boundaries, they need guidance, they need parental support and love, and they need their parents to direct them to be law-abiding. Anytime we have a child being accused of a crime, it's a shortcoming on that family, and that parent or caregiver needs to face the court with that juvenile. So this has to stop. Parents are responsible for their children, and we need to be real about that. We need to have conversations about that, and we need accountability.
And so with that being said, I'm curious, are you planning on reaching out to, let's say, fellow ANC commissioners to encourage them to, well, extend that olive branch as well and perhaps have conversations and or discussions within their communities?
Absolutely, but it's not just limited to the ANCs. I'm really happy that the commissioners that attended last night, they were welcome to attend. They represent constituents, but I'm reaching out to every neighbor in the district, every resident in the District of Columbia. This is a problem that we all share because we could all be victimized at any time, and we don't want that. We don't want to hear about unrelenting violence. We don't want to hear about children being shot, toddlers being shot, adults being shot.
Sure.
That is perverse. It's a perverse level of crime. And we need citizens to really just embrace law enforcement in general. When you see the National Guard walking our streets, they're here to help. They're here to protect. Wait, when you see our federal agents helping out our true blue MPD officers, just wave, say hello, give a thumbs up. If you see a crime or you see something is suspicious, call 911. We have the director of the Office of Communication. She's making changes so that her staff are more engaged, more just accepting of calls that come through so that they can dispatch the calls quickly and appropriately. We need everyone on hand because these are really, really difficult times, and we need everyone engaged, and we need everyone engaged for safety.
Ms.
And
Henderson?
safety is a political issue. It's a life right. It's a basic human need.
Sure. Well said. Yet again, we have been speaking with former ANC Kathy Henderson joining us on the Live Zone. We truly appreciate your time. From that, we'll take you to yet again breaking news, and this surrounds Capitol Hill. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer on keeping SNAP funding. Let's go ahead and take a live look in.
Lose their SNAP benefits, not because the money's gone, not because it's not permitted, because Donald Trump ordered it stopped. Donald Trump is a vindictive politician and a heartless man. Let's be clear, this does not need to happen. Never before, under any president, Democrat or Republican, has SNAP been cut off in a shutdown, and Trump knows he can do it. Here's what he said. Yeah, everybody is going to be in good shape. Yup. Donald Trump, when asked if he would fund SNAP next month. That's what he said this October. But then all of a sudden, seeing how badly they're losing on health care, he decided to use these 42 million innocent Americans as pawns. Back in 2016, here's Sonny Perdue, the agriculture secretary. They funded it under Trump. In the last shutdown, rather 2019, January 8th, 2019. They funded it. So don't believe the bull, and I hope in every story you will write that they can fund it on their own. And I'll tell you something else. John Thune is responsible. The Hawley bill now has 11 Republican co-sponsors and many, many Democrats, including myself, Senator Klobuchar, and Senator Lujan. We have all co-sponsored the Hawley bill. Today, tomorrow, if John Thune would put it on the floor, it would pass overwhelmingly. But he's afraid of Trump. He's going along in this heartless, cruel thing in Trump. Just a few weeks ago, Trump's own U.S. Department of Agriculture confirmed it had $6 billion in emergency funding to keep food aid flowing. When asked about SNAP at that point, here's what he said. Yep, everybody's going to be in good shape. That means he's got the money, folks. And these Republican lies, plain and simple, that they don't have the money, are lies. But they're vicious lies. They're hurtful lies. They're harmful lies. Okay? Last Friday, all of a sudden, Trump ordered that the USDA delete the plan and refuse to use the money. No reason, no explanation, plain cruelty. Cruelty that even Trump back in 2019 didn't do, but he's gotten so much worse and so much meaner and so much more desperate because he knows the American people are turning against him on health care, and as Amy will mention a little later, on SNAP as well. So Trump is weaponizing hunger. He's turning millions of children and seniors and veterans into political pawns. He's choosing politics over people, cruelty over compassion. And let's be clear about this. They've been on a crusade. The Republicans have been on a crusade against SNAP all year. They slashed it by $200 billion this summer to pay for their tax cuts for billionaires. So they've never wanted SNAP, and they don't want it now. But as again, they're using these 40 million innocent people as pawns. It's a disgrace. They can end it right now. Amy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Leader, and thank you to Senator Lujan for leading a very important bill, which would restore.
Okay, I'm going to have to vote. I'll be right back.
Okay, so. Thanks. Okay, now we're say whatever we want here. That could. Yeah, there we are. A very important bill that would restore the SNAP funding, and that bill, like the Hawley bill, we could pass right now. Senator Lujan's bill that I'm co-sponsoring with him, he's the lead of the Subcommittee on Agriculture, actually includes WIC as well, so I'm partial to it. But the point is that both bills we're supportive of. And so Senator Thune should call these bills up. He should call both of them up immediately, and as Senator Schumer said, they would pass. So that's why this is such a false crisis. Why is it actually a crisis? Because the House isn't here. So if we pass the bill because they're afraid to vote on the Epstein files, it will sit over in the Halloween candy jar of Speaker Johnson, where, by the way, the candy is 10% more expensive because of the Trump tariffs. Secondly, that money, as Senator Schumer has explained, is there. There is $6 billion with a B, dollars that are set aside in a contingency fund for things like this. And one of the things that really bothers me about this is that they clearly knew that this could happen, and they actually had on their website, and I know many of you have seen this, a plan that was not issued under the Biden administration. It was issued under the Trump administration, and we screenshot it, so we have it. No one denied that it was out there. It's now magically disappeared like the East Wing. And it says this. It says, the receipts were these. This plan said, congressional intent is evident, congressional intent, that SNAP's operations should continue during a shutdown, and multi-year contingency funds are also available to fund participant benefits in the event that a lapse occurs. So there it is. We would call that a smoking gun in my old job as a prosecutor. They had it on their own website. They took it down at the administration's direction. So they have the money there, or they can fund it through legislation. So let's just make that clear. Then let's go to the second question. Why are they doing this now? I guess we could ask the same question. Why did Trump pardon George Santos when a lot of people in the Republican side in the House never would have wanted that to happen? Why did he suddenly ask for $230 million from the Justice Department? Why did he say he was going to run a third term and then back down? Steve Bannon put it out there. Why are all these things happening? Dominate the news every single day. Well, they think they can fool the American people. They're seeing their premium increases now. No matter how many things they throw out there, no matter how many families they threaten to starve, the fact is the premium notices November 1st is the date. It's not a December thing. It's not a January thing. It's a now thing. And when you, as we have done in going into a number of red states, Senator Kaine and I did a press call yesterday in Texas. 75% of the people who are on the Affordable Care Act live in states that Donald Trump won. And they may not be in this building today. They may not be the people that you all talk to when you're walking around the hallways and see what people think about what's happening right now in America. But the people out there, they know their costs are up, they know that chaos is up, they know that corruption is up. And healthcare is the major driver of their costs, but you add in their garden equipment, tools, audio equipment, these numbers are skyrocketing right now because of the Trump tariffs and because of the inability to even come to the table to talk about healthcare with us. He's off flying around, meeting with all these foreign leaders, negotiating with them, doing photo ops, while we're here in this building waiting for him to call up our leaders to go and negotiate on this, the thing that is the number one thing on Americans' minds, and that is their costs and the cost of their health care. So I turn it over to Ben Ray.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much.
Did she say anything I wouldn't like?
There we go. There we are.
Look, you all, I appreciate this room being full. I'm getting a chance to visit with you in the hallways, but also here. I mean, this shows the interest here. I'm going to repeat something Senator Schumer shared, and it goes to Secretary Perdue. This funding for SNAP has never lapsed in the history of the United States. Last shutdown under President Trump. They found a way to use this money. As a matter of fact, the contingency fund this year was already utilized to pay for staff for SNAP. They already tapped it once. And that plan that Senator Klobuchar talked about, here it is. Why would this magically disappear from the website? And why Speaker Johnson lying to the American people saying, oh, the law does not allow for this to happen? It's bullshit. I'll say it. I come from a small farm. I know the difference of good soil and the bullshit that goes in it, and this is the bullshit. Taking these plans down to try to lie to the American people and justify why it's okay for people to go hungry. 40 million people, plain and simple. 40 million people that are going to miss a meal in the United States of America. And I want to commend every one of my Democratic colleagues that is a co-sponsor of this legislation, and many of us that are co-sponsors of Senator Hawley's legislation, including all of my Republican colleagues. I was asked a question earlier today by one of the journalists about, what's getting in the way of this? Well, President Donald Trump, Secretary Rowlands, and now Leader Thune. He's not allowing a vote on a floor that has bipartisan support, and heck, it could just be a UC. Which Republican's going to stand up and object to their constituents eating? And by the way, while New Mexico is at the top of the list of states that will be impacted per capita of SNAP beneficiaries, Louisiana's in the top 5. Third. I'll remind you the state that the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives is from. I hope his constituents find him. I hope the Republican colleagues, I think Leader Schumer, you shared with us it's 75 now. 75 House Republicans that have told the press something has to be done to prevent health insurance premiums from doubling. They should come to Washington, D.C. They don't need to wait for the Speaker to invite them. Come down here. Let's get together. If the Speaker doesn't want to get in a room, how about the rest of us get in a room? I'll close with this. Chuck, as I turn this back to you. We had a governor from New Mexico, Bruce King, cattle rancher. And he always used to tell folks, if you can't come up with a solution, sometimes you need to lock them up in a barn until they come up with the solution. Well, Mr. President, come back from jetting around the world, get back to the White House. President Trump said it's up to a president to prevent a shutdown. He said it does not bode well for presidents if there's a shutdown. Well, come on back. Bring everyone back. Let's get this done. But in the meantime, all that needs to happen is for Secretary Rowlands to say, no, we're going to use this fund. We're going to pay people food. Or we're going to pay for this program to get people food. It can happen right now. There doesn't even need to be a vote. But if they want to vote, bring one of these bills up. I'm confident it'll pass the Senate floor. Maybe that'll force House Republicans to come back.
Okay, questions on this subject first? Yes.
You've said that there are legislative solutions. Obviously, you said that the administration should tap into the contingency fund. But come the weekend, if SNAP does run out, tens of millions of Americans will go hungry. Are you getting a sense from your Democratic colleagues that the pain of that and other aspects of the shutdown might outweigh this fight?
My Democratic colleagues are united in the fact that Trump and the administration can do this, not this weekend, tomorrow, today, right away. Every Democrat is a sponsor of Lujan's bill, and that's how we feel. Yes.
Thank you so much. Irrespective of the dispute on whether USDA contingency funds can be used for SNAP benefits.
It is not, wait a minute, excuse me. It is not a dispute. It is fact they can use it, and the Republicans say it.
Okay, but there's, only 5 or 6 billion, and it's not cost $8 billion monthly just to administer. I mean, if anything, it would only last.
It does not cost 5 or 6 billion to administer. There's enough money to start feeding people right away. 6 billion's a lot of money, and they're using it for other things. 20 billion for Argentina, hundreds of millions for Kristi Noem's plane. Who are we kidding here? Yes.
What happens once it runs out? If it only lasts 2-3 weeks, do Democrats fold then?
The bottom line is they can fund it just as in 2019, just as in other shutdowns, for a long period of time.
And they also, if
Go
the
ahead.
contingency fund, which is $6 billion, which gets you nearly a month, 3 weeks, runs out, then they can pass Senator Lujan or Senator Hawley's bill, both of which we support. We know that there'll be 60 votes for that. Why aren't they calling it up? They're not calling it up because the House isn't here to pass it. That's the way it works. The House would have to come here. They probably would have to vote on the Epstein files, but they're choosing to let kids go hungry instead of having to vote on the Epstein files. There's no doubt about it. They have been out for 6 weeks on vacation.
Just think, if they have all this money for Argentina and all this money for other things, they have enough money to keep funding SNAP, and they know it. And I just want to say what Lujan said. Johnson just lies. He lied about on immigration, on the undocumented. He's lying about this. He just outright lies, plain and simple. It is not illegal, and his own president has done it. Yes.
Are talks ticking up as Boone indicated? Is there any conversation, any negotiation whatsoever happening behind the scenes? And if so, can you enlighten us on
Yeah, there are occasional talks between Democrats and Republicans on this issue, but our Republican colleagues don't seem to be offering anything different than what their leadership has had so far. We hope that will change. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Understanding what you're saying about Republicans' options here for SNAP and the contingency funds, are you saying Democrats have no responsibility for the fact that
We are saying the Republicans can fund it now, and they're using these people as hostages. Plain and simple. Next. That's the answer. The answer is they can fund it right now. Okay? Right now.
Leadership on SNAP and on healthcare broadly.
And by the way, we don't want to pit health care and food. They do. We think you can have both. Yes.
On SNAP and on the ACA, Leader Spoon said yesterday he had just spoken to President Trump and that the president would be willing to sit down with you next week to talk about ACA subsidies. Is that an acceptable offer for you? If the government opens, by the way, is that an acceptable offer for you?
We've always said, they always say, do it later. Do it later. Later, to quote Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from the Birmingham jail, means never. They have had since March to do this. They've voted 3 times against it. So this idea, do it later, been there, done that. We have to do it now. The window opens. Thank you, everybody. On this subject? Look, the bottom line is very simple. I have a good relationship with him, and we're continuing to talk.
The vote is on Tuesday. What are you going to do?
All right, there you have it. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, flanked by a number of other senators with regard to all things on the SNAP benefits program. The senator obviously outraged and calling for an end, stating that it could be funded immediately, and also stating that the Republicans and Democrats need to come together to yet again reopen the government, now shut down 29 days and counting. We'll take our first break and be right back. 15 years in the D.C. area is seeing concerning trends. In D.C., nearly 55% of adults report having received a seasonal flu vaccine. Among children in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, flu vaccination rates dropped during the last flu season. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Dr. Lashea Ajayi. She is with the AMA Board Chair-elect and a pediatrician and kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Dr. Ajayi, truly a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I got to tell you, this is not concerning, but very concerning to think that we are seeing an increase with regard to the amount of folks suffering from the flu. And yet again, folks are not getting vaccinated. That's cause for concern.
It is. We are significantly concerned about it. You know, last year's flu season was the worst in 15 years, and we're seeing continuing decline in vaccination rates. We know that the vaccine can actually help prevent serious complications, so we're worried about another bad flu season this year.
All right, so why getting your flu shot now? Why is that so important more so than any other time?
So we really recommend getting the flu shot by the month of October, because it gives your body enough time to really build up that protection from the flu shot when the flu season peaks around February. So this time is the best time, especially also as you think about it. We're traveling more, we're heading together for the holidays, we're inside more chance of spreading the flu. So this is the best time to get the flu vaccine.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but getting the vaccine, in essence, really keeps kids, and I want to keep on focusing on kids, but kids and families out of the hospital.
It does. You know, last year we saw that the kids who got the flu vaccine, it actually reduced the rate of getting hospitalized from complications of the flu by about 50 to 60% in kids, 40% in adults. So we know that the vaccine can really help reduce the risk of serious complications. No one wants to see a kid in the hospital, right?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, just a mere thought that one would even hesitate to do just that, and that is making sure that their child are vaccinated. It baffles me. And with that being said, I'm curious, what are some of the reasons why parents are actually stating, you know what, I don't think I want little Jimmy or Jessica to receive the flu vaccination?
You know, the reasons and the reasons we get told are varied. You know, misinformation is abundant, and it can be scary to people, and we understand that. But we're here to tell you that the flu vaccine is safe. You know, the medical community is aligned on this. The CDC is aligned on that. It's FDA approved. It's CDC approved. The vaccine is safe and it's effective, and we highly recommend it, regardless of what other misinformation might be out there.
Yeah, and yet again, that's why we are so glad we have you on the show. I got to ask, who's at greatest risk this season?
So those who are at highest risk of having complications are those really small children, pregnant people, those age 65 or older, and those who have complex medical conditions like diabetes or heart disease. Those are really the population that we see who are more likely to have really bad complications.
Dr. Ajayi, I've yet to receive my latest COVID vaccination update, if you will, and I'm planning on doing so sometime in the near future. I would suspect I'm not the only one, and when I do that, at the same time, guess what I'm going to do? Get my flu vaccination. Can I do that hand in hand? Does that work?
Absolutely. I will tell you that I personally got my flu shot and my COVID shot at the same time. I did the same thing for my 4-year-old. Just it worked out well. So it is safe and effective to get both shots at the same time. Absolutely.
And last but not least, with regard to that shot, I got a text message from the local pharmacy right down the street. Well, quite honestly, it's right across the street from where I live. Yet again, that's okay to get it there versus, let's say, walking into a hospital to doing the same thing.
Absolutely. So to find out where the best place to get your flu vaccine, check with your local doctor's office, your primary care, but also check with your local pharmacies as well.
All right. Yet again, we have been speaking with Dr. Lashea Ajayi. She is AMA Board Chair-elect and pediatrician joining us on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time. We definitely needed this vital information.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. So QR codes went from a cute novelty to an everyday essential. We're talking boarding passes, parking payments, utility bills, you know the deal. But the same cuteness has turned them into a hacker's dream. A growing wave of scams known as quishing is exploiting the public's blind trust in those, well, little black and white squares. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is Mr. Brian Ledbetter. He is a cybersecurity strategist with Guide Point Security and kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Brian, we appreciate your time, sir. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate your time too. Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so did I pronounce it right? Because I got to tell you, for the last 5 minutes, I've been trying to figure out what the heck quishing is.
Yeah, so QR is actually an acronym for quick response, and that's why quishing exists, kind of like phishing. So think of like the QU out of quick. That's where quishing comes from.
Got it. All right, so with that being said, how is quishing working day to day, or meaning the scammers using this, and why is it spreading so fast, sir?
Well, Guy, so back during the pandemic, people may recall that the QR codes started popping up everywhere. I mean, it just was a very easy way of no contact transactions, you know, whether it's, you know, packages in the mail or even envelopes in the mailbox. People just didn't really want to touch anything. And so QR codes became very ubiquitous across the United States.
All right, so can we talk about the most common targets? Because a little birdie whispered in my ear, perhaps it happens to be, let's say, parking meters and things of the sort?
Absolutely, yes, sir. So all the way, if you think about menus at restaurants, a lot of people or a lot of organizations are using QR codes for that. You know, you scan it, the QR code with your phone, you click on a link, takes you to a website, and then you can see the menu. Or even in the sense of, or the situation of a parking lot, like you mentioned, you go to a parking lot, you see our QR code posted. You just have to be careful that the QR code has not been tampered with.
And so I'm really curious, because I got to tell you, this is all new to me, but it's quite concerning because I scan QR codes on a daily basis. And so with that being said, any tips you can offer that consumers can really utilize to help protect themselves?
Absolutely. So quishing is really no different than phishing in the sense of if you're not expecting a QR code, be extraordinarily cautious. You know, like usually organizations spend money to make a QR code sign very visible, and they'll use high quality materials, whereas a cyber criminal may use a lower quality material. You know, if someone feels like they've become a victim or became a victim of a QR code scam, they can go to ic3.gov, which is hosted by the FBI, and they'll launch an investigation into claims that the person's been victimized by cyber criminals. Another thing is you know, like the crazy statistic that stood out to me is NordVPN said that 73% of Americans are actually willing to scan a QR code without verifying whether or not it's legitimate.
Wow.
So, I mean, that speaks to like the level of vigilance that all of us need to have whenever, you know, in our click-happy world. It's just so easy to pull up her phone now, you know, scan a QR code with her camera and click on a link. It's just a sophisticated way cyber criminals are trying to extract our personal information, including credit card information. Another way that people can protect themselves if they do feel like they had their personal information stolen, they can actually call their credit card issuer and tell them about the situation, and then they'll be issued a new credit card.
Wow. Yet again, vital information that we all need to continue to make ourselves aware of as this is becoming an increasing important issue. We have been speaking with Mr. Brian Ledbetter, cybersecurity strategist with Guide Point Security. Sir, we truly appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Likewise. Thank you.
Guys.
Take care.
We'll take a quick break. Hey, coming up very shortly, the latest with regard to the chaos, perhaps, that continues to unfold within the Middle East. That and so much more next, right here on the Live Zone. Here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, as anti-Semitism rises to alarming levels around the world, Israel's Minister of Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism, Amahai Chikli, joins us to talk about how Israel is coordinating efforts to fight this global hate and how he sees the international response to the ongoing war against Hamas. I should make mention, the minister recently posted a deeply disturbing video showing Hamas terrorists toying with the bodies of Israeli hostages. Minister, thank you so much for joining us live from Jerusalem, and welcome to the show.
A pleasure and honor.
So, sir, obviously this is quite a trying time right now, and we're looking at the rise of anti-Semitism globally. I'm curious, how is Israel coordinating a worldwide response against just that?
So first and foremost, we are in touch with the communities, we are in touch with the governments, and I want to mention the team of Leo Tarell in the U.S., who is doing a fabulous and amazing job to fight anti-Semitism on U.S. campuses with really serious steps that are being taken against the people who are leading these demonstrations in the campuses, and also the campuses themselves by defunding campuses who have failed to handle the situation of anti-Semitism. I want to mention that with the previous administration, there was a huge difference. We had a strategic report that has brought care, led by Niyad Awad, who celebrated October 7th massacre. And he was part of the strategy of the Biden administration to combat anti-Semitism. This is an absurd. So now, with the team of Leo Tarell and the Trump administration, we have a far more decisive and serious plan on combating anti-Semitism. That is regarding the U.S. With the Jewish communities, it's guiding the communities. We are bringing delegations of police forces to train them on anti-Semitism. We brought delegations from NYPD recently. We have now a delegation from Argentina. And they're coming here learning about anti-Semitism, how to confront anti-Semitism, and how to help the Jewish communities to protect themselves from assaults. Rather than that, we have also the media campaigns against blood labels and against Hamas propaganda and BDS propaganda. One example is the flotilla. We had a flotilla coming to our shores trying to break the siege on Gaza, led by Greta Thunberg. But when we've made a research and checked who is actually behind the scene of this flotilla, we very fast learned that you can find Hamas, Bassem Naim, Foreign Affairs, sort of a minister of Hamas, who is actually in charge of the flotilla. So Greta Thunberg was at the front of the flotilla, but behind the scene, you have Hamas leaders and Hamas money who are in charge of the flotilla, exposing these kind of stories. This is also part of combating anti-Semitism worldwide.
Minister, it's no secret we've seen Jewish students threatened on U.S. campuses, attacks on synagogues in Europe, and even harassment online. My question to you, sir, is what is Israel doing to really support Jewish communities?
So as I mentioned, we are training the communities, the leaders of the communities. We are bringing delegations of police forces to come to learn. I'll give you one example. Manchester, you had a very serious attack against a synagogue. 2 people were murdered outside of the synagogue. And you had the rabbi. The rabbi was trained by our ministry, and he was trained to first lock the door and to prevent the terrorists, this jihad, to go inside and do a much worse attack on the entire community who was in the synagogue. Another example was in Germany a few years ago when there was also an attempt, but there was a 45 door. So when the terrorists came with a shotgun, they were equipped with this unique door that prevented the terrorists from entering into the synagogue during Yom Kippur and doing a massacre.
Sir, you recently posted a graphic and deeply painful video showing Hamas terrorists mocking and toying with the bodies of Israeli hostages. We've decided not to air it because it is quite disturbing. I'm curious, what compelled you to really share that footage publicly?
Well, look, I think it's very important that the world will know how Hamas is so cynical and so brutal in his behavior, how he's deceiving Israel, he's deceiving the US, he's deceiving President Trump. He do not respect the deal. I want to remind the audience who watch us, the deal said, the first part of the deal, in 72 hours, we need to get all the hostages back. That was the condition for the first deal. We still, as we speak, have 13 bodies of hostages with Hamas. And we know for sure, based on intelligence, that we have 9 bodies that are in Hamas hands, and he can bring these bodies back in a second. Now, instead of that, he's wasting time, he's deceiving the world, and also the way he treats the bodies of Ofir Tzarfati, throwing the bodies from a window, playing with it. That is so brutal and barbaric, and that's regardless of the fact that there's also fighting that is going on. There is no ceasefire. We have lost a soldier yesterday, Ofir Deffelbaum, father of 5 children, and we've lost a company commander a week ago, and his radio man. Both of them, by the way, from the same city of Modi'in. These incidents from Hamas, these are extremely violation of the agreement. So there is no ceasefire, or to be more serious, one-sided ceasefire. It's just us who are doing efforts to keep the ceasefire, to respect the ceasefire, to continue with the deal. But unfortunately, we cannot continue, and we cannot tolerate these going on violation of the agreement by Hamas, and the way he humiliates and treating our men and the bodies of our hostages.
Yeah, I would agree with you, sir. It is quite disturbing. And so we'll end with this, and that is people that are watching right now, those that are not Jewish as well. What can we all do, in essence, to really make sure that we show up and stand up with Israel, and not only that, but stand against anti-Semitism?
So I think that first, knowing the facts, learning the facts on what's going on in Gaza. There's a lot of misinformation. Hamas is an expert of misinformation. I think, to be very, very honest, when it comes to anti-Semitism, we see anti-Semitism rising, not just on the left. When I entered my job and people were talking to me about anti-Semitism on the right, I said, come on, we have the Green and Red Alliance, we have all these Hamas supporters who's radical left, and the anti-Semitism on the right was on the fringes, really on the fringes. And now we're seeing more and more voices coming from the right. I'm speaking about people who were saying that Hitler is pretty cool, and these people are getting the main stages on social media, and that is quite disturbing. I'm not saying that we should shut they cannot speak, but the fact that people are broadcasting and bringing these people to main shows, to mainstream shows, that is something that we see from a distance. And we see Holocaust deniers such as Derek Cooper, and we see influencers such as Fuente, and I think that it's quite disturbing to see the rise of anti-Semitism on the right being, let's say, tolerated and accepted, and this is quite disturbing.
And that's why, Minister, we really wanted to bring more awareness right here on our show. We truly appreciate your time. This is such an honor to have you on the Live Zone, yet again, live from Jerusalem.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, we are yet again following breaking news. The Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., now announcing major actions to lower drug costs. Let's take a live look in.
Expires, cheaper generics enter the market. That system, established by the 1984 Hatch-Waxman Act, works for traditional chemistry-based drugs. Proving a generic is the equivalent is straightforward. If it's the same active ingredient, the same effect, same safety, it gets approved. But that bargain broke down with biologic drugs, medicines made from living cells. When Congress wrote the Biologics Price Competition and Innovation Act, the pharmaceutical industry rigged the rules. Between 2007 and 2009, Big Pharma spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying to make biosimilar approval far more difficult and expensive. They claimed that biologics were too delicate, that they were too mystical to allow true generics. They compared them during these lobbying sessions to fine wines. Each batch supposedly depended upon its unique grapes, the tannin content of its soils, the terrain, the humidity, the genius and personal touches of wizardry to achieve the unique aromatic and flavor complexity of its terroir. It was all clever marketing. None of it was based on science. Then to block pharmacists and doctors from switching patients to lower cost options, the lobby invented a fake distinction between biosimilars and interchangeable biosimilars. The result has been sky-high costs, endless red tape, and a biosimilar market that still lags far behind Europe's. It can cost hundreds of millions to us, the federal taxpayer, just to bring one biosimilar to American patients. That changes today. Under President Trump's leadership, we are ending this unscientific and corrupt system. We're cutting through the barriers that protect monopolies and opening the gates to affordable, life-saving medicine for the American people. One of the biggest drivers of these crushing costs is the price of prescription drugs, of course, and especially biologic drugs. These are complex medicines made, as I said, from living cells that treat cancer, autoimmune diseases, and rare disorders that affect millions of Americans. Biologics make up only 5% of our prescription, but they account for more than half of our drug spending. Between 2013 and 2021, our spending on biologics more than doubled, from $100 billion to $260 billion. By 2024, it reached $407 billion. Some biologics cost patients up to $500,000 a year or even more. That's not a healthcare system, it's a hostage crisis. Why are these drugs so expensive? Because for too long, government bureaucracy and regulatory barriers have protected monopolies and stifled competition. The FDA's outdated and burdensome approval process has slowed down the entry of biosimilars, the lower cost, equally safe alternatives to brand name biologics. And even when biosimilars do get approved, current laws often prevent pharmacists or patients from substituting them for the patients who would benefit from a more affordable option. That all ends today. Today, the FDA is taking bold, decisive action to break down these barriers and open the markets for real competition. The agency will release new draft guidance for companies developing biosimilars, guidance that reflects modern science and common sense. Under this new framework, companies may not always need to conduct large, expensive human trials when advanced testing can already prove that biosimilars work just as effectively and just as safely as the original drug. The FDA will also consolidate several outdated guidance documents into one streamlined rulebook. We're cutting unnecessary red tape, reducing uncertainty, and making it easier for innovators to bring the safe, affordable biosimilars to the market. These changes will also help ensure that more biosimilars are considered interchangeable, allowing pharmacists to substitute them just like they do with traditional generic drugs. The result will be more competition, lower prices, and faster access to life-saving medicines. And we know this approach works. Since 2015, biosimilars have already saved Americans over $56 billion, $20 billion in 2024 alone. On average, biosimilars cost 50% less than their brand name counterparts, and their entry into the market drives down brand name prices by another 25%. That's real relief for patients, families, and for the American taxpayer. But America still lags far behind Europe and other nations. In Europe, for example, regulators have approved more than twice as many biosimilars as the United States, and patients there are paying far less for many of these treatments. These reforms reflect President Trump's directive to restore competition, to empower patients, and lower drug costs for every American. This is a victory for patients, for innovation, and for common sense. We're replacing bureaucracy with science, we're replacing monopolies with competition, and we're replacing despair with hope. Every American, regardless of income or zip code, deserves access to affordable, effective, and safe medicine. The actions we're taking today move us closer to that goal and advance our mission to make America healthy again. Thank you all very much, and now I'd like to welcome the genius behind this innovation, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary. You come up to the, there you are, Marty.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you for your commitment to lowering drug prices for everyday Americans. We're interested in everyday Americans. There's been a lot of talk about healthcare costs, a lot of talk about reducing drug prices. But as you've seen from the Oval Office, thanks to the good work of Dr. Mehmet Oz and his team at CMS, you're now seeing medications come down to a price point of pennies on the dollar. Reforms that have been discussed for 35 years but have never translated into action in most favored nation status pricing. I'm happy to contribute with our reform at the FDA to this incredible movement to lower drug prices, not by 1 or 2%, but significantly. If you haven't noticed, healthcare costs have gone way up since the promise of the Affordable Care Act to make the price of health insurance premiums more affordable, lowering them by $2,500. Within 7 years, they went up by $2,500, the opposite direction of the promise. The fastest growing area of healthcare spending in the United States is drug spending. And the fastest area of drug spending increases is with this new class of medicines called biologics. That's because they are derived from cell lines. It's an expensive process to develop biologics. So they are naturally going to cost more. But not 1,000 times more, not 10,000 times more. I've seen biologics work wonders, as Dr. Oz has in the hospital. Our patients, I've seen cancer patients get biologics with results almost visible during the treatment. It's worked wonders, amazing benefits for patients with autoimmune diseases, patients after transplant surgery, patients with all sorts of cancers, rare and common. Biologics are amazing, and the biologic drug makers are not bad guys, they're good guys. We are doing a lot to promote innovation with biologics, streamlining and modernizing the FDA, our new pilot to get decisions out in weeks, reducing animal testing requirements, which reduces R&D time and the time to come to market. But today, we are talking specifically about the price tag on biologics, up to $200,000, almost $250,000 for some. Who's got that kind of money? Now, some people might say, look, I'm not paying for it, my employer's paying for it. Or I'm not paying for it, Medicare pays for it. Well, guess where that money comes from? It comes from the everyday American worker. That comes from their paycheck. The money for these expensive biologics comes from their paycheck deduction for health insurance. It comes, if your employer is paying for part of your health insurance, guess where that money comes from? It comes from a pool of money allocated to wages and benefits. It comes from you, the American worker. When you get a paycheck, there's a deduction for a Medicare excise tax. All of that money is getting routed towards these expensive biologics. And look, we should be paying top dollar for top products. But this administration is interested in the 80% of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck. This administration has not forgotten, as we have in the academic ivory towers, at the panels on conferences, in the hollowed chambers of healthcare experts discussing healthcare reform, we have not forgotten that 50% of Americans have less than $500 of cash on hand. And when you have less than $500 of cash on hand and your car breaks down, or you get a bill, or you have a copay for a biologic, that can be catastrophic. Well, there are low-cost alternatives to these expensive biologics. The good news is there are low-cost alternatives. Unfortunately, there are far fewer on the market than should be because of regulatory red tape hurdles. There's about 76 that the FDA has approved since we started approving biosimilars. Think of biosimilars as the generic version of the expensive biologics. We have 76 that we've approved in 10 years, probably should have been 200 or 300. But there's a series of onerous requirements that the FDA has had, making the process long and expensive for the makers of these biosimilar equivalents. Today, the FDA is issuing draft guidance to eliminate the onerous requirement of comparative studies that have historically been associated with biosimilars and their approval. We don't have these additional requirements for generics. Moving forward, we're not going to have them for biosimilars. This reform will take the 5 to 8 year time frame to bring a biosimilar to market and cut it in half. It will also save companies about $100 million in their development costs. That'll take the cost down from $200 million down to $100 million, or $250 million down to $150 million. I'm giving you real numbers that companies have shared with me on their costs. Lower prices for drug development means lower R&D costs and lower drug prices for everyday Americans. Today, the FDA is also announcing its plans to issue final guidance on interchangeability, something the Secretary just described, eliminating the bureaucratic switching studies that have been required. When a doctor prescribes a branded small molecule, the patient and their pharmacist can have that substituted out for a generic small molecule, but not so with biosimilars. We are taking a strong stand to advance and promote interchangeability. Congress has been talking about this for a long time, but we're taking action. We encourage them to act, but in the meantime, we're not wasting time. When Humira, the powerful biologic which works wonders, came off patent, it took 7 years for a biosimilar to come to market. Why? Because of these burdensome, onerous, bureaucratic red tape requirements in part at the FDA. The fundamental problem in healthcare is that we have non-competitive markets. It's something we don't talk about. It's a sacred cow topic. But the solution is to convert them to competitive markets. We want to see more biosimilars. We want to see more competition, more choices. When the first biosimilar came on the market 7 years after Humira's patent expired, prices really didn't go down. Call it an implied collusion of prices. But it takes typically until 2 or 3 biosimilars come to market to see the prices really drop. That's why we need to reduce the hurdles and get more biosimilars on the market. Right now, we're not doing well. We walked into a mess. Of all the biologics, the expensive biologics that, again, are amazing, that are about to come off patent in the next 10 years, only 10% have a biosimilar in development. It should be 30% or 40% or more. These reforms have tremendous implications for everyone and every stakeholder in healthcare. I want to thank the staff at the FDA. They've been wanting to do this for a long time. People have been talking about it, and we're doing it. The implications are broad. This series of reforms has implications for community pharmacies, PBMs, hospitals, and Medicare and Medicaid. And so because of the enormous implications for Medicare and Medicaid and the billions of dollars in potential savings, I'm now going to introduce the smartest doctor I have ever met, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Mehmet, why don't you come up? Thanks.
We are stuck with the bill. It's going up 9% this year for Medicare, increasing faster than that in Medicaid, and it's increasing about 9% for the commercial insurance. And to address these increasing costs, you have to have brave leadership. Secretary Kennedy, God bless you for always messaging that at every level, and it rubs off on us, and today's a case in point. Marty, you're very kind to call me all the things you've said, but I can say without question, running the FDA requires a brave human being. You've got to be able to withstand tremendous pressures, and I want to congratulate the FDA Commissioner, Marty Makary, because he's been able to push for change that has been waiting for decades to occur. Secretary Kennedy went through these numbers. Just put that 1984 date in your mind. That's when Congress acted and said these things called generics exist. It took a long time to make them 91% of the medications that we currently use, saving billions of dollars to the American taxpayer. But there's a group called, the catchy name, Association of Accessible Medicines. How many of you have heard of that name? I didn't think so. One person put their hand up, too. 1.5 people. Exactly. Compelling. It's a group of states, scientists, doctors, technology people, pharmacists. They gave Marty 3 standing ovations today for announcing what you just heard. That doesn't happen in academic circles. I don't think I've ever gotten a standing ovation 3 times, certainly in one presentation. And it speaks to the stunning impact that this will have on the industry. Of course, I want to thank the President for messaging that he supports rapid change and encouraging us to go out there and make a difference. And this whole of government approach that Secretary Kennedy has been pushing for, which Marty, myself, Jay Bhattacharya runs the NIH, many others in this wonderful agency have been unified around, has allowed us to achieve things in our short stay here that are unimaginable. As Secretary Kennedy said in the Oval Office a week and a half ago, no one thought most favored nation drug pricing would be possible. It turns out not only is it possible, it's probable in the leadership of Chris Klump, John Brooks, and others. There's been remarkable advances in getting pharmaceutical companies who are not bad guys who are involved in innovation and want to make sure we make the life-saving choices out there available, can strive and make that happen, but at an affordable price. And we've asked these companies to stand up, be counted, be patriotic, and give us pricing that allows the American public to not have to choose between groceries and life-saving medications. And pharmaceutical companies have come to the table to help fix a wrong. But they got 2 problems. All of us, in fairness, have 2 problems. The first is access. Study just this year came out from a prestigious group. 1 in 7 Medicare beneficiaries skip their medications. You should never have to choose between medications in this country, abundance. And when you're choosing in a country that believes non-scarcity, but in bountiful ability to do what you want in life, it causes some very expensive complications, which we all still pay for. Readmissions to hospitals, and of course, it can lead to deaths as well. We don't take medications which we believe could save your life. Now, at the same time, we have an access issue. We don't want to compromise innovation. And the President and the Secretary have been loud on this, and Marty has defended the need for innovation in the industry. The FDA has gone through a lot of painstaking work to ensure that they protect against hindering the cutting edge of industry to allow life-saving medications to come to market. But if you've got 20 years on a patent, and let's say 12 years after your biologic is approved, you should be allowed to recoup that money in that period of time. But once that patent's over, insurgents should be allowed to enter the marketplace to appropriately compete. That's what the ecosystem of fairness should represent. That's what's been hindered with this 40-year history of one by one having to break through barriers, with this being one of the largest and perhaps the final major barrier to ensure that what started with the Hatch-Waxman Act can now reach full fruition and allow the intent of Congress to be heard widely, which is generic products and biosimilars, when they are appropriately to be released because patents have expired, should allow a competition, not a crony capitalism, to run the market. The current system has slowed the ability of insurgents to enter the market, and that stops today under the leadership of Dr. Makary. Now, CMS's job is to pay the bills. We've focused on improving reimbursement models. We've done all kinds of innovative things under Abe Sutton's leadership at CMMI. We're working with the private sector. A good example of that is just on Monday, one of the leading pharmacy benefits management companies, the middleman company of this country, announced after discussions with us that they will voluntarily change their business model. If you didn't see this news, it is big. As the Secretary Kennedy tweeted out on it, this is allowing this industry to transform.
And there you have it, as Dr. Oz just made mention of. If you didn't see the news, you are seeing it now, and boy, is it big. Yet again, Dr. Oz flanked by the Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., as they discuss all things lowering the cost of drugs throughout America. We're also keeping a close eye on Capitol Hill, where any minute now we are expecting the progressive Democrats, if you will, or shall I say senators rather, to discuss all things surrounding the SNAP benefits or the lack thereof. When that happens, including Senator Bernie Sanders, we are expecting him to approach that podium momentarily. We'll take you there live right here on the Live Zone. Obviously, one of the things that we have been doing for quite some time over the government shutdown is really making sure that you are aware, you folks that have been affected by the government shutdown, as to where you can turn. Saida Abbas joining us now with just that.
Yeah, good afternoon, Guy. So Fox 5 DC, we're there for you, and we want to talk about help with food and money and bills that is out there right now for people that live in Virginia, Maryland, the DC area. So let's get started talking about the food distributions. Like we mentioned before, the Capital Area Food Bank in DC is always distributing, and you can find a site near you on our website. Make sure you download the Fox Local app, which is really important. They are doing food giveaways regularly. And for people that are in Maryland, the Maryland Food Bank says their network is able to provide nutritious food. We also have a food search tool for people in Maryland for that food bank on our website as well, which is why it's so important to go on our website and download the Fox Local app. Now, as we go towards Virginia, the Chesterfield Food Bank Outreach Center, they hold a food giveaway every first and third Friday at their Chester location, and several distributions are also held throughout the month at other locations in Virginia. So those were the three places. Now we want to talk about bills and money. So Pepco in DC, which is the major electric company in the capital region, they're offering payment plans to help workers, federal workers that have been furloughed, so they could pay their bills, which is a big deal right now. As we mentioned last week and this week, a lot of people, did not get their full paycheck. Not a good situation. Maryland, if you're an essential federal employee working during a federal government shutdown without any pay, you're eligible for a one-time, no-interest loan through Maryland's Federal Shutdown Loan Program. If you're interested in that program, again, go on our website. Let's go to Virginia. Officials are reminding federal workers of state laws from eviction that can protect you from eviction if you're going through a really tough time. Of course, it's a really terrible situation to be in, or foreclosure during the shutdown, as many folks are scrambling. They're trying to figure out what they could do. We're here to help. We want to make sure you're aware of all of these programs. We have more details and so much on these programs on our website at fox5dc.com, which includes the locations, the hours, when and where the food distributions are happening in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, and about the programs that can help you with the bills and the money situation and how to avoid eviction as well.
Yeah, the key is to be proactive, and we have been saying that time and time again, Saida. There are so many folks that have been affected by this, and quite honestly, embarrassment is nothing, that should not be a part of this discussion. It's reaching out for help if you are in need of help, and that's one of the things that we will continue to do right here at Fox 5. So yet again, for the latest information, it's real simple. Just log on to our website, fox5dc.com. I would assume you will continue to cover this throughout the weekend on your show.
Absolutely, very important.
All right, Saida Abbas joining us right here on the Live Zone. Let's do this, Joey. Let's take it back to, yet again, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Mr. RFK Jr., as, well, they are discussing all things with regard to lowering drug costs. He is flanked by a number of officials, including Dr. Oz. Let's go ahead and take a live look in.
Ways that we can streamline that process as we are with other drugs. So you're correct in that some of those waivers have been issued, so we are going to make it very clear now in our clear guidance. With Humira, the Humira example that you described, let's be honest about what's going on sometimes. The branded biologic manufacturer is paying the PBM to make sure that biosimilars are not added to that formulary. We're calling for increased transparency. You can see we talk every day. We talk all the time. This is a top priority for Dr. Oz to increase transparency and to make biosimilars a priority. And so he's asking many of the stakeholder groups that he has access to take a look at biosimilars. That includes Medicare Advantage plans, it includes Medicaid plans, it includes Medicare Part B and D. Biosimilars are in both parts. So I think, you know, we're not going to sugarcoat things. We're going to be very honest about what we see in the marketplace, and I think you're identifying something that we need to call out. Now, you can come up with protectionist strategies that try to regulate bad behavior. We can do that. We can talk about the merits of that. Or we can create more intense competition and let the market forces do some of that. So when Humira had its biosimilar come out 7 years later, it should be about 2 years. Or if the biosimilar starts in development earlier, like it does in Europe, maybe 1 year or half a year. But when you have that gap, it allows you know, a longer period of no competition. So we want to see more competition, and we want to see more innovation both.
Hi, Emily Kopp with the Daily Caller. This is for Dr. McCary. You said that FDA wanted to do this before now. Why didn't it happen? What forces were at play there? And to follow up on Zach's question, my recollection of the Trump RX executive order is that it proposed FTC action, perhaps, if they didn't come to the table. Some of the protectionist strategies you're talking about, could that see FTC action also?
Okay, thanks. Well, first of all, at the FDA, there are great ideas that just have not gotten daylight. Take, for example, our work on removing the 9 petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply. They've been talking about that for 35 years. They had a citizens petition, and 2 business days before this new administration, they took action on one of them. Well, within weeks, we took action on all 9. So there are great ideas that just have not gotten daylight at the FDA, and this is one of them. People have seen the mired bureaucracy that has stalled biosimilars. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time listening to people on the front lines, asking them, what big ideas do you have and what we can do that's meaningful, that has an impact? And so we've announced a ton of these reforms, reducing animal testing requirements. I'm talking about that for 20 years. Now we've got good computational modeling, and we have our roadmap public, and we're going to make another announcement on animal testing requirement elimination probably next week. On the Trump RX is genius because you can bypass healthcare's middlemen. If you like healthcare's middlemen marking up the price of drugs and taking kickbacks from the manufacturers, use the current system. But if you want another option to shop for a price, to see if that price is better, that's what Trump RX is for. It allows direct purchasing.
Thanks. David Lim with Politico. I wanted to, you mentioned that this final guidance is coming soon. Can you put a timeline on that? And then secondly, I wanted to ask about the role of Congress. Interchangeability, obviously, is in statute. Could you talk about whether you think that this move requires them to take any action to prevent litigation risk from biopharmaceutical companies?
First, on the final guidance, I would say 3 to 6 months. On the interchangeability, it's very complicated because we have the opportunity at the FDA to designate a biosimilar as interchangeable. We're saying basically we think all biosimilars should be interchangeable. And then states have their own rules on whether or not patients need to be consented or not for substitution. So we're planting a flag saying we want interchangeability, we promote it, we encourage it, and I would love it if Congress solidified this in law, but we're not going to wait for them. Thank you.
Hi, Paige Cunningham, Washington Post. This question is for Secretary Kennedy. The president has called for breaking up the MMR vaccine into 3 separate shots. I'm wondering, are you going to be...
Speak up a little, please.
Yeah, the president has asked to break up the MMR vaccine into 3 separate shots. Is that something you're going to direct ACIP to consider or take action on?
We're looking at the feasibility of that now.
Can you say anything more on that?
Hi, Daniel Payne with Stat. You're saying here that Daniel Payne with Stat. You're saying here that you want to reduce the evidence that's required to get biosimilars in the market, but the administration has argued again and again that there isn't enough evidence for vaccines, which are biosimilars. Can you help me understand why more evidence is needed for some things and other things you want less evidence?
So can you just repeat that? You said that. Can you speak up a little?
Of course. In this announcement, you're saying that biosimilars, you want to reduce the evidence needed for them to come to market. But previously, the administration has said that vaccines and other biosimilars, there's not enough evidence for them to be on the market in the first place. You suggest that you need more evidence. Can you help explain the differential there?
Well, with the long chain molecules like biosimilars, the brand drug has been thoroughly tested. It's been safety tested, it's been efficacy tested, it's been proven. What we're saying now, and we're going to implement the same procedure that is used for small molecule drugs, which is if the active ingredient works, if it's been proven safe, if it's been proven efficacious, then you ought to be able to get on the market right away, the same as small molecule. With vaccines, the issue is very different because none of the vaccines currently recommended for children, with one exception, the COVID vaccine, has ever been tested in pre-licensing trials for safety in a randomized placebo-controlled trial. So the starting point is very, very different with vaccines than it is for biologics.
Thank you very much. Arthur Jones II with ABC News. Can you just talk about, Secretary Kennedy, the amount or the significance this announcement will have on struggling American families, as you mentioned at the top of this? And secondly, I've spoken to a number of Republican senators, actually, about the linkage between pregnant mothers using Tylenol and this risk of autism or other health disorders in unborn children. And one prominent senator told me that the evidence there is weak and there's no relationship. Can you respond to that?
For Tylenol?
For Tylenol.
Okay, on your first question, I mean, there's a good example that we worked on recently. We recently put together an agreement in South Carolina and now some other states, the private insurers and for Medicaid and Medicare to pay for sickle cell anemia treatment. The cost of that treatment is $1 million. It cures sickle cell anemia, but it's $1 million. If we could get a brand name drug, if we can get a generic drug, a biosimilar that does the exact same thing for a fraction of the cost, we can make that treatment available in every state. It is right now. It is barely economic for the insurance companies because they think that maybe the treatment, the long-term treatment of somebody with sickle cell anemia, is going to cost more than that $1 million. But it's right on the borderline. So if we could cut that in half, it would be a no-brainer for every single state to adopt it. With Tylenol, we've all said from the beginning that the causative association between Tylenol given in pregnancy and the perinatal periods is not sufficient to say it definitely causes autism, but it is very suggestive. And it's suggestive in animal studies and core blood studies and observational studies from nation to nation. And so there should be a cautious approach to it. And that's why our message to patients, to mothers, to people who are pregnant, to the mothers of young children is consult your physician. And we have asked physicians to minimize the use to when it's absolutely necessary.
Martin Schwartz with Scripps News. Thanks for doing this. You mentioned at the top that you want medications to be affordable, effective, and safe for Americans. We're speaking today on the day that window shopping began in the Affordable Care Act program on those marketplaces, and that shows that unless those tax credits are extended, those subsidies, the average plan will increase for Americans by somewhere around 115%. Do you believe that Congress should extend those subsidies so that most Americans do not receive significant increases in their premiums?
Where'd you get that 115% number from?
Kaiser Family Foundation.
They retracted that. That data was run inappropriately. They changed the messaging on it. Go back and look at the website. Here's the truth. The window shopping is already revealing that the average American is going to pay who's on the ACA, between 100 and 400% of poverty level, is going to pay $50 total next year. It's going to be $13 more than this year. So there can be a lot of hair pulling and scratching and mudslinging, but the fundamental reality for most Americans is that although it is an increase in spend, that's not the big issue. The big issue is the fundamental flaws within the ACA as they were created 15 years ago. We want government reopened so that we have people working, running the numbers, trying to help experts, actuarials, insurance company experts, to try to figure out more holistic ways.
And yet again, Dr. Oz, flanked by the Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., discussing all things surrounding lowering drug costs. Going to take you back to Capitol Hill, where the progressives, if you will, Senator Bernie Sanders, flanked by a number of all lawmakers, discussing the latest with regard to SNAP benefits and or the lack thereof. Let's take a live look in.
How we got to where we are. This government shutdown is taking place for one simple reason. For the first time in the modern history of our country, the majority party in the Senate, the Republican Party, which needs 60 votes to pass a budget bill to fund the government, is refusing to negotiate. Republicans have 53 votes in the Senate. Democratic caucus has 47. You need 60 votes to pass a budget bill. You have to negotiate. But for the first time in modern history, the Republicans are not negotiating. What they are saying is their way or the highway. They refuse to sit down and talk. And further, in terms of their contempt for the negotiating process, Mike Johnson, the Republican leader in the House, has given his members a 6-week paid vacation. So here we are in the middle of a government shutdown. Workers are not getting paid. People are worried about escalating health care costs. People are being worried about being thrown off the health care they have. And the Republicans in the House are saying, hey guys, take a 6-week paid vacation. You don't have to be here in Washington, D.C. To me, that is pretty insane. And let me be clear what it would mean if Republicans got their way and this so-called CR, continuing resolution, were to pass. First, it would throw 15 million Americans off the health care they have because of massive cuts to Medicaid and the ACA. And what studies from Yale and the University of Pennsylvania and elsewhere indicate that when you throw 15 million working class and low-income people off the health care they have, 50,000 of them will die unnecessarily every year. So what this legislation is about is whether we vote to allow 50,000 of our fellow Americans to die unnecessarily every year because they were thrown off of Medicaid and the ACA. Further, if the Republicans were to prevail, what it means is that on average, health insurance premiums for the 20 million plus people on the Affordable Care Act, on average, would double. In my state of Vermont, we have now received information there are some people who would pay a tripling or a quadrupling of their health care premiums when Americans are already paying the highest prices in the world for health care. People cannot afford a doubling or a tripling in their health care premiums. And now what brings us here today, in an absolutely unbelievable way, President Trump is refusing to release the $5 billion in emergency funding for SNAP that helps feed 16 million kids, and that is a direct violation of the law. He is prepared to let millions and millions of children and their parents and grandchildren go hungry because he sees maybe there is a political gain in that. Let there be no mistake, and that is what this statement is about. This is on the U.S. Department of Agriculture website until very recently. The president is legally obligated to use this emergency fund, and up until last week, his administration was preparing to do that. We are here today to send a very loud and a very clear message to President Trump. Obey the law. I know that's a hard concept for the president, but obey the law. Do what Congress mandated you do. Do not let children in America and their parents and grandchildren go hungry. Do not go down as the first president in history to manufacture a hunger crisis in the richest country on earth. Release these funds. Now, the good news is there are at least 11 Republicans in the Senate who are supporting a bipartisan bill to ensure that no one in America goes without the nutrition assistance they need during the shutdown. And that is very good news, and I thank those 11 Republicans. Every Democrat supports that bill as well. That bill, I say to Senator Thune, when you have 11 Republicans and every member of the Democratic caucus on support, that bill should get to the floor immediately. No child in this country should be forced to go hungry. With that, let me introduce Senator Merkley.
So the President of the United States has a new MAHA agenda. Instead of Make America Healthy Again, it's the Make America Hungry agenda. It's weaponizing food, using food as a weapon against America's most vulnerable families. In my state of Oregon, you're talking about 210,000 children. You're talking about 130,000 seniors. All told, over 700,000 people going without food. Congress said this should never happen. So we created a contingency fund. That fund has $5 billion in it. We created an interchange power so the president can actually use tariff funds to supplement that $5 billion. And here's the President of the United States last month acknowledging that that's the intent of Congress, that this funds exist, people will not go hungry. And now here's the President today saying, I am going to attack the health and welfare of America's most vulnerable families as a negotiating tactic. It reminds me of his strategy over immigration, saying we're going to separate children from their parents. We'll use children as a weapon. Well, here it is once again, and it's absolutely unacceptable. So, the President has the power to address this, and a group of attorney generals are saying, because it's the law, we're going to sue to say the president has to follow the law. Some 26 attorney generals are suing, saying, President, follow the law. We're saying, follow the law. His Republican colleagues, 11 of them in the Senate, are saying it matters that children not go hungry. You know, when children don't have food, they also don't learn. So it's not just an attack on their ability to have basic nutrition for a month. And who really, who in the United States says, I'm going to make sure children go hungry for a month as a political tactic? Who says that? Except this president in this time. It's unethical, it's immoral, it's illegal, and we're here to say, hell no, that Democrats and Republicans must join together and tell the president this cannot happen here, not in our nation, not against our children, not against our vulnerable families.
Senator Markey.
Thank you, and thank you for calling this, Bernie. November 1st is just 3 days away. That's the day when SNAP benefits stop being added to EBT cards for 40 million Americans, because Trump and MAGA Republicans refuse to use a $5.5 billion emergency fund to make sure families get to eat. Some of those families are already having to ration what's left on their cards because they fear nothing is coming on November 1st. That's the same day they have to pay rent. Maybe the same day they have to pay their electricity bill or refill grandma's prescription. It's 3 days until millions of families across the country wake up unable to stock the pantry. 3 days until thousands of military families and veterans will see their food aid disappear. It's the richest country in the world. When a CEO billionaire just got $1 trillion in tax breaks, Trump and his Republican allies in Congress will allow babies.
All right, yet again, progressive senators discussing all things surrounding the SNAP benefits and or the lack thereof. We will continue to stream this on our YouTube page. You see it right there on your TV screen. It's youtube.com/@Fox5DC. By the way, if you haven't already done so yet, make sure you download the Fox Local app. That way you can take us any and everywhere you go. On behalf of my producer, Joey, you got the overview camera. I'm Guy Lambert. We do this 12 to 2 each and every Monday through Friday. We truly appreciate you joining us. The Take coming up next, right here on Fox 5. We'll see you tomorrow.